Hello, Roger.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
More or less busy. We have catastrophic crash.
Yeah,
I
it's
forgot. We recorded, so we're not supposed to tell any secrets here. Good. Yes.
yeah,
Weather
that's
is good.
fine.
Yes, it was a rainstorm in California, like
Hmm.
devastating. It's good. Good for Mother Nature. Um,
Bad for people.
yes.
God. You guys okay?
Yeah, everything fine. Yes, I keep my house very well maintained.
Yeah, that's good. It's always good to get rain there, but
Hello, Torfin.
Hey guys, how you holding up?
Good.
surviving,
Ivan.
surviving,
Oh.
not vibing.
Yeah,
Uh,
surviving is best definition. Yes, Roger, right. You ask how doing? Surviving. Yeah.
that's good. I'll
Hey,
take
Keith.
that over not surviving. Hey Keith.
Oh,
I'll check in with Jeremy and see if he's joining.
hello.
Hello,
All
Jeremy.
familiar names on that list right there.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hello. So Keith, you will be happy to know I am heavily working on getting Windows working natively too, by the way. There's a lot to do. I've been churning away at it pretty heavily. And then on top of that, teaching the team what to watch out for so that they're not introducing more stuff. And then once I can stabilize it, I'll add stuff into the pipeline to ensure that it keeps working. Um, since you're on the call, Roger, do we already have resources for and at what capacity level for running Windows type stuff inside the pipeline?
We do not have dedicated self-hosted resources for that. We use the GitHub runners for that one, but GitHub does provide Windows-based runners for
And
anything in
what's the
CI.
memory? Is there any specific memory constraints we have to be worried about?
Let me go find that for you. There's different cost options associated. So let me go find that information for what's available on the
I'm
different Windows
sure they
runners.
have all. I'm sure they probably have all kinds of stuff with access to like Azure and Microsoft and all that stuff. I'm sure they just bill it. Yeah, Keith.
Can I ask a stupid question? Oh, like if we look at our current docs, we have like docs for Mac. Yeah, makes sense. Linux, WSL2, and and Windows WSL2. I guess my question was because currently with WSL2, you to run solo, you actually have to run it within like Ubuntu or something, like within a Linux distro on your Windows computer. So then, what's the difference in our docs between Linux and I mean in the current version running on WSL2 where it requires a Linux distribution.
So, uh, as I'm diving into this whole native Windows, then I'm realizing too that there's issues with some of the WSL2 stuff and the Windows, and it's a little misleading. So, I don't even think it's been very proven out that the WSL2 stuff. So, WSL2 is Linux. It's not Windows, but it's not exactly 100% Ubuntu either. There's variances. So, really, I think the way to go is that we have either Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. And even Linux right now, technically, when I was looking at some code in there, I mean, it was mostly just the Podman, but it only had it for APK, which is Debian. It's not, and so Ubuntu is Debian, but it wouldn't support the Red Hat variations and CentOS and all that stuff. So I think we've got, even gaps just to say only Linux. Although a high percentage of people would probably jump to Ubuntu or Debian. It's not a guaranteed thing, especially if they're like in a corporate environment with Red Hat. But if they're installing their own dependencies, they should be fine because a lot of our stuff is running in there, and we actually run in Red Hat with consensus noted that let's see. I forget what variation we're using for the runners that we run like solo out of and things like that, the GitHub runners themselves. But is that Red Hat, Roger? Do you know? Like, what's the base
I thought it
image?
was Ubuntu.
Oh, you're right. I think it might be
Yeah.
Ubuntu. So
For
then
sorry,
we
for
could be
which runner?
so then we could be basically be tied to Debian currently without any support for Red Hat or Arch. Um, so yeah, and so yeah, with the whole WSL2 thing, I think it's a bit of a mess. Also, as I was diving deeper
Oh,
into it,
WSL.
so
Yeah.
there's what WSL2 for Windows 10 versus Windows 11. There's certain features that they added that you can only get to with Windows 11, and it has to be a certain version number of WSL2 or higher. And WSL1 is missing certain things, so it gets a bit of a mess. So I think the way to go is just to say, we're going to support Windows Native, we're going to support Linux, but starting with Debian and later branching out. And of course Mac OS, with in the Mac OS with the Intel and the Silicon. And I think from there it's a lot more straightforward, because this whole WSL2 thing is a bit of a mess. And I also see to enhance a lot of stuff in regards to some diagnostic debugging type tools, where if the users want to report problems, then they will have a solo command to run, or certain things we may just automatically grab depending on the situation, but we're not there yet, and those tickets haven't been written up, so they need some design and thought. But we need to capture things like what type of Docker they're running, what type of OS they're running, and when you get into Windows, it's a lot more detail, like, the chip, maybe even the chipset, right? How much RAM they have, how much is Docker allocated for memory and CPU, how many CPUs they have. There's a lot of potential details that we may want to extract, but not just publish directly to Solo. Like, they can extract it and then they can publish it if they want to, to when they're writing up a ticket or providing it to us so we can help debug. Yes, Keith.
So I guess where I'm confused is like we're using Docker, we're using Kubernetes, we're using Brew. Like the whole point of all of these architectures is to abstract away all of that complexity. So I understand like there might be some differences between how you install Brew on a Mac versus how you install Brew on a Windows PowerShell. Maybe, but
Brew does not work on Windows. Brew only works in WSL2, is my understanding, unless
Yeah,
I missed something.
there's different install tools. So Brew is available on on all of the Windows, or on all of the Mac and Linux distros that we're mostly familiar with. Choco is usually there for the Windows distribution system. I don't know if
Right.
they can use the same tools or not.
Now, yeah, I think you have to go to Chocolatey if you're trying to create a similar experience as Brew on the Windows side. Anyway, go ahead, Keith.
But I guess my question is, once you get these tools installed, then, I mean, okay, in my simple mind, there should be very few differences. I mean, if you run brew install on Mac or you run it on Windows, I mean, shouldn't it be very similar?
Yes and no. Okay, so the concept of Docker is that it's basically running, if you're on pure Linux, then it wires itself directly into the Linux OS if you run it that way. There's I think it's called like headful and headless, or there, I forget the exact VM-less or VM-full. I don't remember the exact word. There's a word for it, and I'm totally saying it wrong. But it basically what it means is that, is it going to run a Linux virtual machine inside of Linux, or will it just hook into the Linux OS? And it's much faster just to hook directly into the Linux OS, so it's got better performance if you do that. But you can't do that on Mac OS and Windows. So what happens is it basically runs a Linux virtual machine on Mac OS or a Linux virtual machine on Windows. And that's what Docker is doing. And then, but within that VM, then it does all of its container wiring and things like that. And so you get an almost perfect simulation of as if you were running Docker directly on a Linux without that VM, essentially. Now Kubernetes runs within the Linux, and so that also is going to have a very similar experience. And so that itself is really not the problem. The problem is Solo. So Solo does not run within a VM. Solo is a tool that you install. It's you can even like rebranding it Solo CLI. It's a CLI tool that you install on your machine, and so but it interacts with the Kubernetes cluster and the Docker. And so from what actually runs in the Docker and the Kubernetes and the cluster and all that, that's all pretty almost identical between on a Windows machine, as long as it's in Docker or Podman, or a Linux machine, Docker or Podman, or a Mac OS, Docker or Podman, or AWS or Google Cloud or any of that. It's going to be almost the same experience. Where you run into is Node.js can the version can affect it. And then you also have you have different tools that we install, but the user can install have a global version installed. Like for example, we can install Podman, but we don't install Docker. So the user can install Docker, so they can have different versions of Docker. They can have different versions of kube control. They can have different versions of Kind. They can have different versions of Helm. But on top of that, there are certain types of things that Solo needs to do that requires, like for example, a shell. And so those shell calls can be different between Windows and the POSIX environments. Additionally, the directory, like, so I found a really interesting nuance is with kube control. If you do like a copy to or a copy from on Windows, using Windows as either the sender or the receiver, then the file system blows up because of the drive letter has like C colon. And so with the way that kube control works is it sees that colon, and then the left side is like the pod or the container, and then the right side is the path. And so when it says C colon, it thinks that you're talking about pod C, and it can't find it, so it blows up. So you have to like change it, instead of like / localhost /C$ and so I found that out. So, but you don't have to do that on the POSIX environment. So there's all kinds of weird
I think my question,
nuances.
Jeremy, is like, so I'm sharing my screen. Like, setting up local node is so easy, and setting up local node, like it run, we don't have that much differentiation between Windows, Linux, Mac. I mean, except for maybe this line here where you need to. Although I found I don't even need to do that, and it runs on my PowerShell. So like, I am curious why. Okay, at the end of the day, local node sets up a Hiero network. Solo sets up a Hiero network. Why is Solo introduced so much complexity? When at the end of the day, you get the same thing as an end result, and yet Solo is so much more complex. And
So,
we've
so
had to
what you're
yeah.
also looking at is part of the story, right? So what you're seeing is right now is like you see this Node.js, this npm, you see Docker and Docker Compose, but and you're looking at Solo, but you're looking at Solo right now. But what we're very aggressively moving towards, the target of the end of March, is that same list there. So you've got Node.js, and maybe, and we don't even list npm. So you've got Node.js, and it's about to be a minimum of like 4 gigs, and then you'll have Docker, and then there will be no Docker Compose. So we'll actually have a smaller list than local node in about a month.
But will we have, like in this one, like the only differentiation between, like, you can be running on Ubuntu, you can be running on, doesn't matter, Windows, you can be running on whatever. It's just this is the only line that talks about a differentiation. So will we still
Right.
have to, in
Yeah,
Solo,
we
will we
are
still have to
about to have, wait, yeah, so that line there's not going to be a WSL stuff. That's going away. Yeah, so we'll actually, I mean, yeah, so if you have kube control installed, then it needs to be a higher version. If you have Kind installed, it needs to be a higher version. If you have Helm installed, it needs to be a certain version or higher. And if you have Docker, it needs to be a certain version of higher. But you don't have to have any of that installed, and Solo will just automatically wire itself in. Uh, well, Docker you will, because I don't think I don't think Podman only works in WSL. It's not gonna work on Windows native. So the user is gonna be responsible on the Windows native for the Docker and the Node.js, unless we get Chocolatey wired in, and then we can maybe remove that list to make it smaller. But yeah, so. Yeah, I mean, I think when we're done with this thing, I don't know if it'll be perfect by the end of March, but I think when we're done with it, we're going to blow local node out of the water, because with all of these changes on the memory footprints that we're mandating, we're about to receive much, much slower than that whole 16 gig of RAM requirement that local node has, you just showed. We're about to blow that down to like, a few gigs. And even with TSS, wraps enabled, will probably still be underneath 4 gigs. And so I think like we're basically gonna blow local node out of the water. Now the only thing is that the whole startup time, we're gonna have to pull off some more tricks to get down to close to what local node's doing. But we're already finding things that we can shave off, and we've got some more things that we can shave off some more. So a lot of the things we'll be able to do, and there's other tricks that we can do, and so I think we'll giving local node a run for its money. But we've got a lot to do by the end of March, though, and we need to not be focused. We need to basically have people supporting us on keeping the squirrels away, because if we're chasing squirrels, we're not going to be focused on the things we need to be focused on, right? So we need to make sure people that we have help in filtering out the squirrels, so that we're not wasting time looking at those squirrels or thinking about squirrels or distracting us. We need support. I went in, I was looking at a PR earlier today with TSS, wraps enabled, Schnorrs enabled, wraps disabled. And I was checking to make sure that the memory didn't jump up, because it passed, and we had bumped it up a while back to just under 12 gigs or 11, I don't remember, because when I think it was when we went to 100 transactions per second and 1,000 accounts, it jumped the number up just a bit. And so we had to temporarily bump it up to compensate. But we've been starting to check certain changes in, and I think some of them were some configuration changes the other teams have been helping us to make, the component teams. And I looked at it, and it was down, like after we enabled TSS with Schnorr's algorithm, it was still, I think, under 7 gigs total memory, which previously, just a week ago, without the TSS, it was 11 gigs or close to it, 10.3 or 8 or something. So the changes are already starting to drop our memory footprint, which is great. And there's a PR that's almost ready to merge, that Nathan did a first draft on the parallelization of a couple of things. And there's more work that can be done there, but this is just a quick hit. And Evo said he ran the before and after, and it took a minute off of our cold start time. So we're making progress. And I've got one-shot deploy on Windows from a developer perspective all the way to relay now, which is close to the end of the cycle. So I've almost got one-shot deploy all the way through on Windows native. So we are moving aggressively. And we onboarded a new resource onto the team as well. And he's looking very promising too. And he has a strong TypeScript background. So, yeah. So, yep. So send y'all's prayers and optimism our way, because we've got a lot to do. Yes, Roger.
Just a couple of things for my part. I'm excited about this new team member. Like you said, he seems like he's going to be pretty promising. I am working on this dual publish feature that's due on Thursday. Getting ready to test it here today. I think it's in good shape. I'm just trying to make sure I don't overwrite a bunch of data and files that shouldn't be overwritten as part of this. So I'll probably be reaching out to you a little later, Jeremy, to check out what gets updated and posted. I am going to be publishing release 57, the current release, to the Hiero Ledger side, just so I have an existing piece up there that I can use to test against this publishing workflow.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
we're going to play that way. And then I sent you some information in the release engineering channel about the WSL distributions that are available. There's a ton that can be used. It's not just Ubuntu.
Say that last sentence again. Sorry, my brain stopped.
The WSL distributions that are available on Windows.
Oh, that's fine, but I don't have to have the WSL feature though.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this
Cool.
is without WSL. Is that what I'm looking at?
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, currently we have, I think our unit test runs on a Windows runner, but I think it might be using WSL. But what I'm looking at is being able to do it without WSL at all. So I don't really care
Gotcha.
about the WSL feature. In
Yeah.
fact,
Okay.
I'm very tempted to just, like, once we get this working, to not even support WSL, or at least make it more not listed as a support thing and be more of a feature that should work, but we're not aggressively testing it because why would you when you can just run Windows native and it's less complex? So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I haven't talked to Nathan about all of that, but when I look at all the complexities with WSL, it's more fragile. So I'm very lenient to just either not support it or at least not make it the top of the support list. So, and then also, Roger, I think Nathan was going to talk to you about pursuing that licensing that you had tried to get me in on, but got denied. So maybe we can go ahead and proceed with that again, give it another try or something. I don't know, but
Oh, for Copilot pilot group, or not Copilot, for the
no,
Claude pilot
no,
group.
the other one. Well, it is, yeah, it is the AI, but I thought it was Claude.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say when I
Yeah,
said
yeah.
Copilot.
Okay.
My brain
Yeah,
is all
okay.
broken.
Oh, well, I
Uh,
know I know what you mean, because like I've got so much in my brain. I have to strategize about not thinking about certain things.
yeah, exactly.
Like meeting all y'all in person next week. Like my brain's about, I have to set some time about and just think through and make sure that all of those buttons are fastened. Yeah. Um, okay. So, um, yeah, Keith, I didn't get a chance to read through the entire solo logging doc that you created. I tried to give it a little bit of attention and I found a few things. It sounds like you responded to those. But yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I'm very passionate about logging. And so I've had a lot of ideas about logging that we needed to do. So I'm not really opposed to any of this. Yeah, I think having a good PRD and design in place, and then working on that's really important. I don't know if it should be the end of March goal though, just because I think there's a lot of other things on that list that needs to take priority. And then if we have time, add that in there too. But yeah, I think they're definitely important for sure.
Yeah, I just pasted it. I mean, it's not just log. I guess it means what you mean by logging. I think it's just more correct error messaging that allows users to rectify errors. I would say that it is pretty important to have some basic, like, right now, like Solo will stop during installation. You don't know why. It is good if Solo could output an error code about like why it's so people can debug. That normally is a fairly important feature for customer readiness. Now, we don't have a ticket on this yet, so I kind of want to get everyone's feedback, get the design settled down, and then create a ticket. And then we can
Yeah,
prioritize.
Yeah, absolutely. And with the vision of Solo, with being able to create your own private ledger, which HashSphere, but also universities or whatever, people that have enough tech savvy people to do this on their own, whatever. Of course, we're trying to make it easier and easier eventually. Um, but Solo is designed intentionally to be able to run production grade environments, not just laptop testing stuff. And so I think, having these error codes are really important from a DevOps perspective because a lot of times we have to change the messages. And so it makes it really hard if you're DevOps to build alerts and things like that if your messages are changing. So by having an error code, they can key specifically off the error code to generate their alerts, their notifications, their metrics, all of these things. It makes it way easier and more supportable long term. So for sure, really error codes are awesome. Also, using the MDC is like super, super awesome. I've seen this in action. When you start using a lot of the Grafana technologies and using a proper set of stacks, DevOps is able to like go in there and query things and things like that really, really well and filter down and build all kinds of complex queries using proper MDC stuff in your logs. So yeah, so I love this stuff. I'm really passionate about it, but it just hasn't surfaced to the top. But it sounds like you're driving it. You're getting a lot of momentum behind it, so that's awesome. Yeah. Um, let's see. So yeah, so we were talking a little bit earlier. Torfin is interested in sounds like he's kind of more or less unofficially signed up himself to help us create like some MDC or no, so MCP, acronym soup in my head for server for or hook in for AI agents on the Solo repo to help developers who want to leverage AI to do solo development so that they can create a higher quality results and waste less of our time reviewing stuff generated by AI because the better instructions you give to the AI, the better results that it can give. And so with proper MCP, is that right?
Yeah, it's MCP, Model Context Protocol. It's Nathan
Yeah,
and I had been talking about this back in the fall, but
yeah.
I haven't had time to deploy it out. I put a lightweight framework together just to kind of explore using it myself, and I think I've got enough structure that I could actually put a PR together for one. Just
Okay.
that last like user submission was like the wake up call for me that we're probably going to start getting more of these, and I don't want, team members like you, Jeremy, getting completely bogged down with doing PR reviews for stuff that isn't even fully vetted or working, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, and we have to be careful too. Like if it's from a somebody that's outside of Hiero Ledger and doesn't, or maybe they're part of Hashgraph, but they haven't got the right level of access in Hiero Ledger, then it won't automatically run the pipeline. And so if it won't run the pipeline, then we have to look at the code and inspect it before we just go run it because it could leak credentials or do all kinds of stuff, which can be very, very problematic in so many different ways and security wise. And so we have to do a lot more due diligence before we can even run the pipeline. And then we have to kind of watch it. And so it just requires more time, and so there's that, but obviously, yeah, just making, I mean, people are going to be using AI, right? I mean, that's what it's there for. It's a tool. And so if we can do things like this, that will increase their ability to help us, but also it'll increase the quality of what they ask, what they provide us. So, and make it actually more usable and more, better. So yeah, but there's things like we've got essentially some style guidelines and code style and stuff like that. But some of it's in Notion, and that we didn't fully 100% get it all over into our repo yet. And so,
Yeah, even the contribution guidelines, there's like three different sets of them, so you have to kind of like overlay them on one another to make sure you're actually abiding by the requests.
yeah, so there's work to do there too. Yeah, Keith.
I'm just trying to understand what it is we mean because to do a submission to a Hiero repo, I mean, somebody needs to sign it with their signing key. Somebody needs to do the like signed off by email address. I guess my point being like, how are you? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what we're talking about. Like, you're going to get submissions. They will all be submitted. How would you distinguish an AI submission from a human submission? Because they all have to be kind of signed by a human or I mean, I'm just trying to think, trying to
You don't
understand
need to
what it is we're talking about.
distinguish between them.
Yeah,
The
they're just
Yeah,
assumption
we're
is
PRs.
that
not.
humans are going to be submitting AI generated
There's
submissions.
good PRs and there's bad PRs. There's not AI PRs and human PRs. There's just good PRs and bad PRs. So isn't that what we're trying to distinguish?
No. We're not trying to distinguish if so this conversation was not to try to say we're trying to distinguish what was generated by an AI or not. What was trying to say was that if we have a good MCP server, then whenever somebody uses AI and they use that MCP server, then they'll generate better results with it. And our team itself can use that to augment our tool set. The other thing in parallel with that is that both humans and AI need to follow code style and code guidelines, and we have that, but it's not documented very well inside the repo itself. Some of it's still sitting on Notion, and some of it refers to another page by like Google, and so it needs to be properly consolidated and put directly into the repo, and then correctly linked on our contributor page, and then also wired into the MCP server once we create that, so that if somebody is using AI, they could do it. But even if they're not using AI, then we can properly refer them back to the proper documented inside the repo code styles. So does that help?
Yeah, I would just say that if we're, I mean, I think that the team is super busy. So I would just say if we are going to be focusing on external contributions, then I would say that the solo team should be looking at all the work that other high road teams are doing on good first issues. And like maybe we want to have some good first issues on the solo repo. And as part of that, the high road team has put together a whole bunch of guidelines and stuff for good first issues. We can just leverage that. So I would just say if we're going to focus on external contributions, that's great if we have time for that. But if we're going to have time for that, we should try to tie into the work that the rest of the higher organization is doing around, yeah, good first issues. That should be our
Okay.
focus.
Yeah, so Keith, what's happening is we're getting contributions from team members that aren't on the solo team right now. And those are like well-intended contributions. They're complicated code PRs that people are, proposing to potentially merge. And they require a lot of review to validate whether or not they actually do what they say they're doing. So this is an attempt to, you know, prevent that dependency of Jeremy's time. It's something I was
Not to
offering to
not
do
to
on the
prevent the
side.
Yeah,
dependent.
I don't see how it prevents it at all. In fact, with AI
No.
MCP, you're going to get
So
more
wait,
complicated
wait, wait,
PRs.
wait. So we're not trying to prevent people from submitting stuff. It was just more to say that it would just help those people that are doing it to have more better tools in place. So
Yeah,
that's
sorry. I meant prevent the dependency, not prevent people from submitting. People are already submitting, but they're submitting stuff that isn't necessarily working. And it
Well,
takes us
well.
time to validate.
I don't know if AI was used for or not there. That was an opinion
It
that somebody
was
else had
Slack.
made.
There was a
But
Slack conversation about it before
okay,
I
well, I
came
wasn't
over.
part of that. All I know is that it was a little bit difficult to review. The first time I thought it was like I thought it was fine, But my brain processed it a little bit more and I came back for a second pass in more detail and slowed down, I started finding things in it that were, I was shooting down basically. I was like, nope, this won't work. Nope, this won't work. Nope, this won't work. This will actually make it slower, not faster. The goal was to make performance improvements, but a lot of it wasn't. And I think one thing actually might have been useful that probably did. And we're actually looking at moving that in a separate PR that doesn't have all the rest of the stuff in it. And then the contributor kind of walked away from it. And I don't know if they have their notifications turned on, so they may not be seeing us responding to it because I haven't heard back from it. So I don't know. But anyway, this was just an isolated event. It did just spark some conversation. That's all.
Yeah, to me, it just sounds like a normal process of getting a PR and rejecting the PR and providing rationale for why we reject the PR. It just seems like it's to get one contribution and say, oh, because we got that one contribution, now we have to go build out a complex MCP framework to help future contributions. I don't know. It just seems like a leap.
The team is not doing that. Torfin was volunteering that, and he didn't put a deadline on it either. So
Yeah, it's not also not that complex. It's pretty straightforward. I'm saying I actually already built a reference version of that, and I was offering to extend that to the team's repos. Something we could possibly do with other repos as well. Frankly, we're about 10 months behind on doing this with our repos.
yeah. And given the amount of work that we need to do by the end of March, if these tools like Claude, for example, if we learn how to like use them quickly, and don't waste a lot of time on it, then they could literally, increase our productivity by anywhere from 10 to 70 to 200 or 300%,
Yeah,
allowing us
this whole
to
team's
meet our
about
goals
to
faster, right?
this whole team's about to move to Claude without an MCP server. So you're basically gonna be doing duplicative work to what the MCP server could like significantly improve on, right? Like it's
Right,
not,
right. Because then we'll
these
have
are
to be
all things that are
manually
happening,
making all
right?
these corrections. Whereas with the proper MCP setup, then it will just generate a much better result the first time, like, eliminating a lot of extra labor intensive reviewing and working. I mean, you still have to do the review, but it's a lot less interacting with the AI trying to get it right. And I don't know too, but does the MCP server allow it to actually like run solo or anything?
It would basically what it'll do is it'll funnel the tool calls from a local Claude instance where they need to go by creating kind of an external context. So it acts like the best way to think of it is like an API for an agent or tool call that creates context external to the agent itself. So the reason you want something like this is because you've got a big public GitHub repo. And what happens right now when you use AI to generate something like this user did is they're probably either manually having it go out, consuming the context window, and it either grabs everything or it probably doesn't grab everything because it takes the path of least resistance. And therefore, you don't get complete context with whatever's being built. And as a result, you get something that kind of looks right, but also is missing some important details. Um, so when you have MCP engaged, then you're basically just putting that up front for the users, right? Um, they have a one-stop shop for all the details.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, that would definitely help our
It speeds everyone up and
provide a
it gets
better
the
tool.
context better.
It provides a better tool. So yeah. Okay. I feel pretty complete so far. Anybody have anything? I did get a request to tag another version of Solo. So I might do that soon ahead of Thursday because we've got that TSS feature enabled in there. We were trying to get it to run our larger test harness. And so, but our job that does that is a little broke. So I think that might need a quick patch. And I think that Jeffrey was like working on that patch. And once that's able in there, then we can run our test harness in the pipeline against that consensus node 72 alpha release. And if that looks good, then we can go ahead and probably tag solo so that the block node, mirror node, consist node, relay explorer, all of them can test with TSS. So
This is TSS without Schnorr signatures, right?
no, this is TSS with Schnorrs without wraps.
Oh, but without wraps. Okay.
Yeah. The wraps feature takes a little bit more work, but the teams don't need wraps right away. And so they said to prioritize Schnorrs. And
Got
so
it.
this is Schnorrs. Yeah.
Do we have a timeline for the wraps?
I think it was only a little bit more logic. We almost had that working too.
Yeah, I assume they were going
But
to be pretty close, but we're getting asked to report on that, so I don't want to shoot us in the foot by overpromising, but
oh well,
well, also
we've
everybody's
already got a
out next
lot on
week, right?
we've already got a lot on our overpromise sheet.
Yeah, exactly. I'll talk to John about it.
Yeah. John could tell you probably what his. I think previously the issue was validation. So then I told him just do it without Schnorr. I mean without wraps, just do Schnorr. And so he made some changes for that, and then we got the validation logic from the logs. So I don't know if he went back and tried with wraps or not, or if he even got to try with wraps. So I don't know. So. But the wraps thing itself is not a whole lot more. But I think what we're going to have to do is we may have to do some Helm chart changes to make sure that the mount is set up a certain way that we give it as a directory to do this like file writing magic that it does. Because it's like wraps by itself will use something like 24 gigs of RAM or something like that. And so they have a thing in place that basically by default it's on that only uses 2 gigs of RAM, but it'll use like 21 gigs of hard disk space. And so we need to configure all that a certain way inside Kubernetes to prevent like performance issues, basically. So I think that is probably just a little bit of work that Jean hasn't done yet. I don't think so, but it's not too bad.
I don't think it's like a blocker for that team yet, but they need to know when it's going to be happening.
Right. Well, the teams are starting to use Solo to test inside their test harnesses. So um, this is they need this so that they can test all of these. All right. It's getting close to time. Everybody good? All right. Y'all have a good day. Have a good week. Bye.